Hello, everyone, and welcome to this little stream from PDXCon 2017. My name is Henrik Fåhreus, and I'm here with Jon Shafer, the legendary game designer and game director of Civilization 5. And of course, if you've been following events here, you should know that Jon has started working for Paradox as of now, pretty much. And we're talking about what you're supposed to be doing in the coming years and so.
Although we should premise that by saying we can't actually talk about the specific project that I'll be doing, so.
Yeah, no, sadly, it's kind of a weird thing, but sadly we are both working on secret projects at the moment. So yeah. While I'm still working on CK2, I am also working on a secret project, and your project name is Hadrian.
Yes.
And mine is Titus, basically.
Yeah, so.
But we've been talking a lot about what to do next. And obviously, we do come from slightly different design backgrounds. Jon is an expert at turn-based games and believes in that a lot. We had a little bit of a heated discussion about the merits of pausable real-time the other day.
I don't know about heated. It was lively.
It was a lively discussion, yeah.
There was no yelling.
No, I think
no yelling, no tears.
We're not passionate in that way, perhaps, but.
Yeah, but it is an interesting question because, obviously having worked on Civilization, having worked on only turn-based games, and I think you've only worked on real-time games.
I have, yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting
discussions going on. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are curious to know basically what kind of game it will be that you will make. And unfortunately, we can't really go into that.
No, but one thing I will say, without giving away any specifics, is that I'm always going to be the kind of designer who wants to push things, like push the envelope, as you might say. And I mean, this is in large part kind of what you were doing with Stellaris as well. I mean, that was a very different project for Paradox. It's not, a historical province-based grand strategy game. Maybe you could talk briefly about what that process was like, trying to transition from something that is, CK is much more in the traditional EU-style Paradox game. How did Stellaris differ? Yeah, for sure.
I've always loved 4X games. I'm old, so I've played most of them since even before they were called 4X games. And I wanted to flirt with that a bit. I also wanted to make a very accessible and easy to learn game from Paradox. And we've been talking about making a space game for ages and ages. So, it was time to do a game like that. But, people know that it's hard to classify if it's a grand strategy game or a 4X, but it's probably more of a 4X game, really. Even if it's possible real time.
So what do you see as being the biggest differences between 4X and grand strategy?
Well, I think it's largely a matter of scope. And the kind of mechanics that you tend to see in it. But yeah, the possible real-time part is also an aspect. There are other things that we're probably going to talk about more tomorrow, actually.
That's true.
About the regional units or map units versus hexes and tiles and so on.
Yeah, and it's an interesting, we were talking a little bit about that, but this is a conversation that I've actually had a number of times with Soren Johnson, who is, another 4X style designer in the same, similar mold. And this was an interesting observation, I thought, that he made about Civilization specifically. So a lot of people like to think of Civilization as a turn-based game. Obviously it is a turn-based game, but that's not the most characteristic or distinctive element to it. What Soren said, and I think I agree with him, is that it's actually more of a tile-based game than a turn-based game. The tiles are more important than the turns, which is an interesting way of looking at it because the tiles inform the turns in a lot of ways. How many tiles can you move? How many tiles away is the our cities apart from one another? How many tiles away is this army able to move to attack? It's...
Yeah, I mean, map-based games are about the geography and how you structure the map to a large degree. But it's interesting that Sid Meier wanted to do Civilization as a real-time game originally as well. And I believe it was supposed to be possible real-time, although I'm not sure.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that.
No, I don't know either. But that's also, of course, an interesting thing, is that in a turn-based game, you don't feel stressed. You can sort of just make your decisions, even if that turn happens to be very intense. Whereas in our types of game, you need to pause all the time and stuff. And that can be a challenge in multiplayer, especially. When you can't frequently pause, you need to run at a sort of decent speed. So.
How much of an obstacle is that, though? I mean, obviously, you would rather be able to pause, have that option. But how much, like, what do you lose there? Like, specifically, is it like 10% less fun or 10% more stressful, or how do you picture that? I
think it's just it's a matter of how many players you are, of course. If you're playing 32 players, it's just an impossibility. People would fall asleep. But it's also, I think it's better game design if you can pace the game so that you don't have to pause. So that's the way we usually design our games, is that you shouldn't have to pause, really. But it's, of course, it's very tempting to just do that and give orders.
How much do you think the Paradox games would lose if you didn't have the ability to pause? If it was just straight up real time, same as it is multiplayer, every game, what would you, like, how much of a problem would that be? Well, or how much of a compromise?
That's very hard to say. I mean, they could go in this sort of RTS direction and become more of a stress, action twitchy game. And that's not really what I want to do. So then they would have to be very slow paced. Or we could do sort of a persistent world that lasts for a month or something, and you give orders and wait until the next day or whatever. So yeah, I don't think that would be for us, basically. We need pausable or something else. I've personally been a bit interested in WeGo as a mechanic as well. A planning phase and a simultaneous execution phase. I think that could be pretty interesting.
Do you think that's a system that's better suited for a more tactical game, like like an XCOM style game, or do you think that's something that could work just as well at a grand scale?
That would be the interesting thing. If we ever did a WeGo thing, it would be natural for a tactical game, I think, but it would be a bolder and perhaps more interesting move if it was more grand strategic level. I definitely think it could happen. I think WeGo, with the execution phase, also has the potential for action. You can see your units fight in a more natural way than in perhaps the Turbines game. Yeah. So.
Well, that reminds me actually a lot of XCOM. The new one, the remake, not the 1990 whatever it was. Yeah, the classic one. And this is an interesting story that I was actually talking to some other folks here a little bit about just the way XCOM was originally envisioned. It didn't start as a game design or a game document or a prototype. It actually started as a movie, and they put a bunch of artists in a room for a while. They spent a few months building this. It was almost like a recorded gameplay video of what they wanted a new XCOM game to feel like, and it did. And this is something that came through in the final version of the game as well, where you have these moments where somebody will go down and take a headshot, and it's a really dramatic angle. Yeah. And this was actually one of the ways that they were able to kind of pitch the game and say, this is an action strategy game.
All right.
I'm not sure I quite buy that particular framing element of it, but it kind of gets to that idea what you were talking about, where it's more than just click, shoot, done.
Yeah, but I think it's even in a hardcore game, it's useful to have something that gives you a more visceral connection to the world. And if it's combat, fleet combat in Stellaris, for example, or something else, it's something that plays out and it's beautiful and pretty to look at, and it gives you some sort of feedback on how strong you are, how powerful are my units, what can they do now, sort of. And I think that ties into sort of player progression as well. If you get better units, you want to see what they can do as you sort of level up, like a character in a role-playing game. Or in that classic game that both you and me have loved, or used to love a long time ago, Panzer General. I don't think there was much visual feedback as you leveled up the units, but at least they got experience. And I cared for them, I think.
Oh, yeah.
In much the same way as a character in XCOM or Crusader Kings 2.
Yeah, it's funny. It's not something I'm proud of now, but I think back on it and kind of laugh a little bit. But when I used to play Panzer General when I was a kid, I was a notorious save scummer. I would not, if I lost any core unit, I would reload and make sure that didn't happen.
Right.
And I look back on that now as a designer, I'm like, ooh, that's, ooh. Like, how do you design a game in such a way that you don't end up in that situation? And maybe there is no way around it, but it's funny because, yeah, you get so attached in such a way, and that reload button is just so close that it's hard to accept that. And that's a problem in a lot of games like XCOM, like, oh, I lost my guy, reload.
Yeah, no, I personally, I don't mind save scumming so much. I'm not so much philosophically against it as many other people are. You know, Dwarf Fortress is one of those unforgiving games, for example, where you're supposed to be playing in sort of Iron Man mode. But I save scum even that, because I want to play it more as an architect and a builder and a planner, and I don't like to invest 100 hours into a game and then do something stupid and it's all over forever, basically.
Yeah.
So that's just me. But, you know, if you design so that you have to keep reloading all the time, I'm not so sure about that either.
So what do you think about Iron Man mode in general then? Are you just not that?
No, I love Iron Man mode, but it has to be on a suitable level, basically. And I don't want to bash XCOM, you know, the new games or anything like that, because I love them. But
you don't want to, but you will.
A little bit, a little constructive criticism. Just, you know, it's pretty easy to misclick. And just lose your whole crew, basically, because that was a pathway on a different level or something, and you misclicked, and it's like bad move. Sorry.
True. I mean, I almost wonder though, because if you end up in a situation like that, how much is it worth? Like, because if you know that something is permanent, you will play differently, and that will affect the experience. I think in a lot of good ways. Like, for example, in a game like. Gosh, like Terraria, for example, which is, you know, one of my favorite games, actually. Combines platforming and procedural maps. I love it. But you know, there are different difficulty levels. One where when you die, you just lose your money, and then that's whatever. That's not that big of a deal. Another level where if you die, you lose your equipment at that spot, and then you have to go back and get your equipment again. Right. So it might be in a very difficult part of the world. And then there's full Iron Man mode where it's like, oh, okay, your character died, that's it, game's over, start over again. Yeah. And I'm attracted to that latter one in some weird, twisted way, because like every jump I take, like every time I face an enemy, I'm like, oh, this could be it. I gotta, you know, you play it in a different way than on that easiest difficulty level where you just, you know, jump down a pit and like, if I die, it's not that big of a deal. I don't know that. It works better in certain types of games, but in these like games that you're supposed to play for hundreds of hours, that's not as much fun. But, you know, say Binding of Isaac, or something like that. You know, it's part of normal gameplay to start over fairly frequently. Yeah. And that works for me. It's like NetHack and other roguelikes back in the day. I was perfectly prepared to do that, and you know, Iron Man suits that. But if you have a game where you're playing an architect or an empire builder of some kind, and you're building something. Yeah. Right. I feel that it may be a little bit less suitable, to be honest. So you were talking about reloading a little bit. Do you think it's good for a designer to try and build into the design mechanisms that discourage reloading? Absolutely. You know, absolutely. You know, you should try to avoid that. But it's like, don't take away the ability. Try to design the game so that it's equally tempting to keep playing. You know, the disaster that happens to you should be interesting as well. And, you know, it's not game over. It's, okay, that was a setback, but it's also pretty funny. So, you know, I want to keep playing. Yeah. It's a sort of a carrot more than a stick. Yeah, I can see, I don't even necessarily think it needs to be a carrot rather than a stick, but just, can you get back to the place where you were? Like, for example, if you're playing a game like XCOM and one of your characters just dies, just gone, you're like, okay, well, I'm going to reload that. But if you have a system where they take wounds and maybe they're disabled, they're out of action for, I don't know, like... Yeah, haven't they been going in that direction more, I think? Yes. They sort of get fatally wounded and you get more chances to rescue them and carry them out and stuff. And I think that's exactly right. Yes, I do too. That's the perfect way of doing it. It's like they can still die, but then, you know,
you have to mess up really badly,
right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Of course, some people really don't like that, though. Some people say that's too soft. I like the old XCOM where, you know,
I really like
when
it
you get hit in the head, you turn around the corner, because that's where some of that terror comes from when you're playing the original game.
Yeah.
I don't think there's the same level of terror in the new ones, but in the original one, you could just walk out a door and boom, guy's head falls off.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of miss that unforgiving terror in a way as well. I see where you're coming from, but I also like it when, you know, my man is down and, you know, there's some gas cloud or something on top of him, and I need to save him now before he bleeds out.
Yep.
And that can also be sort of an intense experience. And, you know, you have to shape your plans in order to save this person.
Yeah, it's more strategic, whereas the old one is more visceral in a way, where it's just like, yeah, you turn around a corner, anything could happen. And that's one of the things I think about a lot, especially with regards to roguelike games. Like, how much is just random bad luck, unfairness, good design or bad design, or is it just a tool that is appropriate in certain contexts and not in others?
Yeah, no, it's hard to say, but some rough edges can be good. For example, you know, it's pretty interesting when the sort of even difficulty suddenly, you know, jumps or something completely unexpected happens, and you have to up your game and, you know, reshape your plans and stuff. So I think that's good. Yeah.
But it can also be really frustrating.
Yeah.
You're like, wait a minute, this isn't the game I thought I was playing.
All right, we got some questions here as well. I think, why are they talking about XCOM? Well, we sort of sidetracked a little bit in there.
Because we can't talk about what we're working on. Sorry.
Yeah. Some like the challenge, others not. I, for one, like the challenge it gives. Yeah, no, I agree as well. You know, the Iron Man mode is perfectly legit, you know, and I like it. But
so a question for the chat. I want to see if we can get some feedback here. Who prefers the new XCOM versus who prefers the old XCOM? Like the one where you could just walk out and then boom, you know, guy's head gets shot off. Because there are a lot of people who prefer the earlier one, despite the graphics, despite the interface. You know, I'm kind of curious what you guys think.
Yeah, I don't know. Old, new, old.
Old. There we go.
Mostly the old, I guess.
Yeah, so far. If you like the new one, speak up now. Okay, we're getting more of a balance.
All right.
See, it's really interesting because like there is a pretty dramatic split. Like it's not clear cut one way or the other. I suppose that's why you know, people make more than one game.
Yeah. No, now we sidetracked into XCOM because we're talking about basically Iron Man, and
that's true. Yeah.
And you know, I like to have both options. I think, and I think in a decent game, you should have the option of using Iron Man or not. And you can have achievements that you can only get in Iron Man mode. That's good. But because you need to reframe your mind right from the beginning, that this is how it's going to play. I need to be really careful. I need to be prepared to lose people. I'm going to use canon fodder characters or whatever. So.
What do you think of achievements as a designer? What is your opinion?
I like achievements for their potential, and we could do a lot more of them in our games as well. As a tool for giving players direction and to learn the game, you know, it gives you sort of, if you can see the achievements you can strive for in the game, it gives you a sense of direction in that I can achieve these things. That's cool. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try a new play style. I'm going to try playing, you know, in southern Italy so I can get this achievement, and that's going to give me a different experience and so on. So, you know, I think they have a lot of potential. I'm personally not an achievement getter. I don't go for them because I want to catch them all or sort of the brag rights. But I'm more interested in them from a design perspective and, you know, using them to teach players.
Yeah, honestly, I used to hate the idea of achievements. I used to hate it. I'm like, this is stupid. I mean, I was like, I understand why people like them. But as a designer, I'm like, that has nothing to do with the gameplay.
Right.
What do I care about achievements?
No, it's almost like I'd almost like to have them as a sort of in-game mission thing. Getting something out of game is not that important for me, personally, at least. So like a mid-game victory condition or something could be.
Well, this is something I'm kind of wondering if Binding of Isaac might be my favorite game ever. I've had some trouble getting some people to play it because there's an awful lot of like poop and pee and vomit in this, you know, really complex, interesting bullet shooter. It's kind of strange in that way. But I found that the way it uses achievements is actually really interesting because there is a gameplay element to each achievement. So if you unlock, you know, if you beat the game with a certain character, you'll unlock a new item, and then that item will be part of the pool that you then are able to play with again. And I think that's kind of what turned me around to say, okay, I like this. This is kind of fun. And I put way too many hours into that game. And a lot of it just, okay, can I get this item? Can I get this achievement? Can I, oh, no, I lost. Let's try it again. Oh, I lost. Let's try it again. Oh, I lost. And, and then at a certain point, I'm like, oh, wait, this is fun.
Right. So those kind of achievements give you in-game rewards. So they feed back into the gameplay, right?
They do. I don't know if you could really do the same thing with a strategy game, though. I think in a game like Binding of Isaac or an RPG or something, you know, something that's not, I don't know, something that is on the grand scale.
Right. No, I can easily see that. You know, you could get access to new sort of national IDs or perks or, you know, traits for a character or something like that by completing certain missions or achievements. Not maybe between games, though. That's a bit more controversial.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Like so, having something that you unlock in a strategy game between games.
That would be something, you know, cosmetic or something.
Yeah. Probably. I don't think that would work very well.
No, I think that's a trickier proposition, at least.
Yeah. And of course, if you just have them within the game itself, then it's just a gameplay mechanic, I guess. It's not really an achievement anymore.
I suppose so.
Mini quest or sub.
But it's a...
Mini goal.
Yeah, some sort of mini goal. I believe in that more than a sort of persistent reward between the games.
So speaking of goals, we were talking the other day about victory conditions.
Classic discussion as well.
Yes.
And it's something, you know, with Stellaris, we only have basically limited victory conditions. And that's because I don't really believe in them much. For me, the only satisfying victory condition is to conquer the world, basically. That's it. That's the only thing that I feel is legit.
Maybe this just says more about you, Henrik.
I don't know. You know, we make military strategy games. And I would argue that even Civilization is a military strategy game.
Oh, those are bold words. You better watch out with that.
Yeah, maybe. No, it could be that it's the way I like to play. But, you know, for me, I usually turn off the other victory conditions, like tech victory and stuff. It doesn't feel satisfying.
Well, yeah, military is the most direct way of interacting with anything in the world. Like, and this is one of the issues that Civilization has had, is that the cultural side of the game often isn't that much fun. You built a temple in your city. You built a library. Okay, cool. That's not as much fun as like sending armies out to maneuver around each other and crossing rivers and you know, interacting with the map. I think it's the map interaction that makes the difference there.
Yeah, it's about identifying player styles. You know, some people like to be the gardeners and like to grow things. Other people are power mongers and like to conquer stuff. But I think those two types of players are really the most common in strategy games, to be honest. I think it's unfortunately about time to wrap it up. So this was just a short sort of introductory talk. And I'm sure we'll be back with more information about what Jon's going to be doing with us in the future.
Eventually, yeah. Once the marketing people let me go off. Same with you, though.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Looking forward to hearing more about what you're up to as well.
We're always sort of shackled by what we can be saying. So thanks for tuning in, folks. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Jon. And
yeah, absolutely. We'll have many more discussions. Some of them will be online. Exactly. Most of them probably
not. No.
But yeah, cool. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you.